In this video, we'll be looking at the Tecno Pova, not the Pova, which is the popularly known battery line for Tecno, but the Pova. The Pova is a rebrand of the Pova line of smartphones by Tecno. It was announced in the early parts of October and it will be hitting the shelves here in Nigeria. It comes with the Helio G80, which is one of MediaTek's flagship Helio processors. In this video, we'll be looking at the specs and features and of course, everything in between. If you want to skip ahead to any section of this video, do check out my timestamps in the description below. Without further ado, let's get to the video. Inside the box of the Tecno Pova, we're greeted with the device itself wrapped in the sticker highlighting all of the flagship specs and features, the Helio G80 being atop, the 6000 mAh battery, 18-watt flash fast charger, and the huge 6.8-inch dot-in display. Taking off the next layers, we're greeted with an envelope in that diamond Pova text. Inside it is where we get the usual suspects, the 12+1 month warranty badge, a Google Assistant card because this phone has an orange Google Assistant button to the side. You also get a screen protector which doesn't come in many phones these days. That's nice to see here. And you've got a case, a Manchester City branded rubber case for extra protection against drops. The case fits well, I have no complaints, and huge props to Tecno for the long-standing and continuous partnerships with Man City. You've got the charging brick and stylized paper box for the rest of the accessories, the charging cable and headphones, which are nice to see. That's all we get in the box, and now to the device itself. Taking the wrap off the back, we get this shimmering frosted look on the Pova. The color I have here is the magic blue. We've got the speed purple, dazzle black, which is the flagship color, and magic blue, which is the one I have here. As I said, taking that wrap off the front shows a glossy huge portion of the screen in that premium glass sheet that's rounded. As you know, the back is polycarbonate. It took all of 58 seconds to boot and set up this guy without any input, which is pretty much the standard these days. Of course, you've got Android 10 on here with the improved iOS 7. When it comes to the build quality also, I'll say that this thing is buff, and it's rightly so because it's a 6000 mAh lithium polymer battery. It's not the slimmest phone ever, and it's not as light as many of the other offerings you get right now. From the right side, you get the volume rocker keys and the power button. The bottom houses the microphone port, the USB port, and a headphone jack. I noticed that there is no speaker grill at the bottom, and this is taken care of by the front-facing speaker or earpiece up at the top. So this doubles as the earpiece and loudspeaker. I don't know how that implementation was thought through. However, one would need to be careful putting that on their ear so it's not too loud when they're taking calls. Other things you have up top apart from the earpiece, of course, are the front-facing cameras, the dual LED flash, ambient light sensor, and of course the charging indicator, which we'll get to later. On the left side, you've got the SIM and micro SD card slot for all the purposes, no hybrid adjustments. There's also the Google Assistant button, which is conveniently placed, and those who will find it useful will find it useful. However, I rarely used it. On the back is the camera array, fingerprint reader, and the Tecno branding. When it comes to the display quality, for me, I found the display to be just good enough. Of course, it's a 720p display, so it won't deliver 1080p streaming results. Highest will be natively streamed 720p image at 60 frames per second. I also didn't find the camera to be distracting. That's the whole punch cut out. I'll leave prices to the Tecno Pova in the description below, so make sure you check that out. And if you're liking this video so far, please hit that like button and consider subscribing and turning on the bell icon so you'll be the first to know when I post a new video. It's an LCD display, 6.8 inches, and an 82.7% screen to body ratio, and of course 480 nits of brightness. What do these stats mean? Well, it's a familiar look to the Tecno line, and display is not necessarily the focus of this line. However, video quality was cool on here. A good video will come out good. The only thing that's different in some form is the fact that the speaker is now at the top in the earpiece section and not at the bottom grill. I'd have loved a dual speaker setup, but hey, this is what we get. I found daily use to be responsive, touch sensitivity wise, and clicks as well. I fortunately had no issues with lags on here. Sensors like the fingerprint reader and face unlock were responsive as well. I had no issues or complaints here. Performance is pretty good on here when you take into account the compromises in display and graphics. This is in part thanks to the processor. The processor that you get on here on the Pova here is the G80 processor from MediaTek, a 12nm processor, which is a mainstay for gaming. During gameplay, battery was quite laid back and impressive, and I'll share how it performed. In terms of performance, it wasn't laggy or buggy, and battery drop was 11% after my 30 minutes of heavy duty Call of Duty gaming session, and with 1 hour of gaming I lost 26%. It's all in 720p, and this doesn't make it unplayable. Tecno mentioned that it's powered by the ET engine. Their ET engine, or Evolving Tech Game Engine 1.0, to elevate performance for everyday casual gamers who are the target for this line, and the heavy reliance on battery users, this will have you covered. You can expect smooth performance, fluidity, and game time response relative to the native graphic ability you've got on here. So yeah, that's an advantage. You have 6 gigs of RAM coupled with 128 gigs of storage, which will be plenty for most people. And again, the powerhouse that this thing is, coupled with the RAM and ROM, it seems like a sweet spot for those who don't care about those few compromises I mentioned. It's quite alright that we've got the 18-watt fast charger on this guy, but one thing to note is that you've got a big battery on here, which is a 6000 milliamp hour battery, of course. Battery speed for me was relatively fair. Again, it's a big battery to charge, so you will get up to 26% in 30 minutes, 52% in an hour, which again is fair. But I think a lesser battery would have hit high marks in this in terms of percentage when you take into account the time it takes to charge. Oh, and it has a charging indicator as well when you plug in the charger. I thought that was nice to see as well. When it comes to the cameras of the Tecno Pova, you've got the front-facing 8 megapixel lens, and a quick one I'd like to mention is the fact that the wallpapers are context aware in relation to the camera, and it would be complete without the animation around the camera area. Another thing that that's interesting that you can do is accessing the camera in the front via the lock screen, dragging across the camera itself. I found this by accident and I thought it was really cool. Speaking of the animations as well, you get the rolling animation when you change from the back to the front and from the front to the back, vice versa. The front-facing camera also has an actual dual LED flash, which you can use in really poorly lit conditions. The rear side of the Pova shows us the 13 megapixel main wide lens, 2 megapixel macro sensor, 2 megapixel depth sensor, and a QVGA sensor, all with a quad LED flash and the Pova text beneath, capturing everything in that rounded rectangle. Selfies I took on this camera were somewhat consistent in that they had the same noise patterns and exposure levels. The portrait mode was really similar, and it had a fair amount of background blur which encroached into the edge of my face. There's no ultra wide camera on here, and there's no telephoto or zoom lens. However, shots from the main 30 megapixel camera came out nice. You can also zoom up to 2x, which will retain the details while using a 13 megapixel camera. And the maximum zoom level you get is 4x. One thing is for sure, you get some value from the main 13 megapixel camera. When it comes to the other cameras on the bunch, you do have the macro cameras and the depth sensor to help with the back camera, portrait mode, and of course a very small QVGA sensor. I would say that the main 13 megapixel camera combined with the depth sensor was the perfect combination to use the cameras on here. It did outshine the macro camera. This is evident in both indoor shots and even when you go outdoor, comparing the macro to the main lens. So here, most of the value is on the main lens. Video quality on the camera was not the most stabilized of footage, but it did serve the purpose of capturing the details, especially during the day. And this also shined when I got up close with the subjects I captured. One thing to note is that slow motion video is only capped at 720p, but the results were usable and nicely slowed down. How's it going, guys? So this is the front-facing camera video quality of the Tecno Pova. It's an 8 megapixel front-facing sensor. It has dual LED flash, and it shoots at 1080p at 30 frames per second. Let me know what you guys think of this video quality, and most importantly, the sound quality you currently hear now in the comment section below. It is evident that while the cameras are not the strongest suit of the Pova, the battery life and performance of the Helio G80 are way better features that this carries along. Question of the day: what's your favorite feature of the Tecno Pova? Would you buy it? What are some of the things that you liked about it? Do comment below and leave a like if you found this video useful. Consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this. Hit the bell icon beside it too. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.